Okay, so the problem right now with the access none is if we're trying to spam the E key. So if I just keep spamming the E key to loot a weapon, it gives me a access none error. So if I just try that here, if I try to spam the E key, just like that, and I click on escape, you can see we are getting this error saying access none, trying to read the property looted weapon. So this one, access none means that this variable is empty, and this is probably because we are resetting it up here and it doesn't get a chance to process the whole code before we're trying to loot again. Because if you spam the loot key, you're simply just spamming all of this code here and it never reaches, or it reaches this point and then it reaches this point as well at the same time. And it says access none, it gets confused. So what we can do is we can pause the player from looting whenever it's actually looting the weapon. So if I go over here and make a new variable, and let's call this variable looting weapon, compile this one. So when we are looting the weapon, let's take this and say looting weapon, set it to true. And whenever it finishes looting the weapon, we can take this and say false. Okay, so this prevents the player from spamming the code. So we have to do it over here. When we are pressing the E key, we have to tell the player that you cannot do it whenever you're looting. So drag from here and say not boolean. So when you are not looting a weapon, we can go ahead and make a branch and say, now you can go ahead and request loot weapon. So whenever this one is set to true over here, when it starts looting the weapon, you cannot do anything. But when we are finished looting the weapon over here, then you can go ahead and request to loot a new weapon. Now, this one is going to give you a problem, and maybe you already can see what the problem is. Now, if I go as the client and try to loot the weapon here, and you can see it's giving me a problem right now. And if you remember, we are in multiplayer, and this one right now, you are setting it through the server. And over here, you're trying to use this variable on the client. Remember, you can drag and write a print string to see if you are on the server or on the client. So if I play here as the server and I press E, you can see I print hello as the server. But if I play here as the client now, if I play and press E, you can see I'm spamming this as the client. So I can play this code through the server and the client. This means we are also on the client when we are down here. So you're using the variable on the client, but you're setting it on the server. Remember, you have to, as the server, you have to replicate information back to the client, else the client have no chance of knowing if this is true or false. So when you set something on the server and you need to use it on the client, you have to replicate that information back to the client. So let's compile and save. So now if I play as the client and I go ahead and click on play, and let's try it out. So here as a terrorist, let's pick up the weapons and let me go over to the AK. I press on E, everything is working now. Okay, so it is working, and I can also switch my pistol on the back, and I can switch this one as well. So you have to do this, and if I spam my, you can see I'm now spamming my loot key. You can of course set a delay if you wish to. If you don't want the player to switch this quickly, you can set a delay for looting. But as you can see here, it is working correctly. And if I click on escape, you can see we don't get any errors. And this is because it's actually waiting for this to be false before the player gets a chance to loot again. But the player don't notice this because the code is running so fast. But now we have set this barrier and everything is working correctly. Sometimes if it does say error with weapons you are trying to drop, so if you're trying to play here and you're trying to spam the G key, and I press on escape right now, I'm not getting any errors, but if you get an error in the future, you can always take this. This is the error we got before. You can right click, convert this to a validated get. Make sure it is valid before we make all of this. And yeah, so that's how you get rid of the error before we had where you actually got an error from dropping the weapon. So you can see I'm trying to spam it. Nothing is happening. I think it is fixed. But if you get that problem, you can always do this. So let's compile and save everything for now. And let us move on to the next lesson.